I ran in the rain, without shoes. Not because I had forgotten them, but because there had not been time. There had not been time for shoes, or for the bag I had packed and unpacked 4 times in the previous 6 months. Every time I told myself this was the last time, and then discovered that last times required a kind of courage that accumulated slowly and that I had not yet fully assembled. Tonight I had assembled it, not from strength. From the specific desperation that arrives when you understand with complete physical certainty that if you do not leave right now, the next time you leave will be in a condition that you cannot walk. I ran. My lip was split on the left side, and the rain hit it with the specific cold of rain that does not care what it touches. My feet on the pavement found every piece of grit and every cold puddle, and I did not care. I was running with the single-pointed focus of a person for whom forward is the only available direction. Behind me, I heard the car. Leo's car. The sound of it specific and identifiable because I had learned in 4 years to identify every sound attached to him. His footstep on the 3rd stair. The particular way his key turned in the lock when he was angry before he even opened the door. The engine of his car, now, was accelerating toward the mouth of the alley I had just cleared. I turned onto the main street. A black sedan was idling at the curb. I did not think. I opened the door, and I got in. The man in the back seat had dark hair and a quality of stillness that was different from the stillness of someone who happened to be sitting quietly. It was the stillness of someone for whom stillness was a chosen state rather than a default one. He was wearing a suit that cost more than 3 months of the rent I had paid in the apartment I would never go back to, and he was looking at me with dark eyes that were registering the situation with the rapid, systematic attention of someone who processes information first and responds second. Leo's car slid past the window. Headlights moving through the rain. Slowing. Not stopping. Moving on. I realized what I was about to do a fraction of a second before I did it, which was not enough time to stop it, and which was perhaps not enough of a reason to stop it anyway. I leaned forward, and I kissed him. Not gently. With the specific intention of creating something visible from the street that would register as ordinary and private rather than as a woman hiding from the man searching for her. He did not pull back. He held my jaw. Both hands. With the controlled precision of someone who has made a decision about what they are doing and is doing it deliberately. Leo's car did not stop. I sat back. The man looked at me. That, he said, was a very expensive kiss, little girl. His voice was low and carried the specific quality of someone who did not need volume to communicate authority. It was the kind of voice that did not raise itself because it had never needed to. I was breathing hard from running and from everything else, and I looked at him, and I said the first true thing I had said to anyone in 4 years. I know, I said. I will find a way to pay for it. He looked at me for a long moment. Then he said, drive. The sedan moved. The penthouse was on the 22nd floor and had the specific quality of spaces designed by people who understand that space itself communicates power. Large. Precise. Nothing out of place in the way that things are not out of place when the person who occupies the space has specific standards rather than simply money. The kind of order that comes from someone for whom disorder is not an aesthetic preference, but something closer to a physical discomfort. A doctor arrived 40 minutes after we did. I did not ask who had called him. He was quiet and thorough and addressed the split lip and the bruising across my cheekbone and the additional bruising across my left arm with the practiced neutrality of someone who had been called to treat injuries like mine before in this building and had learned not to ask questions he already knew the answers to. Albert Gambino stayed in the room while the doctor worked. He sat in the chair across the room with his hands flat on his knees, and he watched with the expression he wore for everything, the specific contained assessment of a man who was gathering information and had not yet decided what to do with it. When the doctor left, he said, sleep. The room at the end of the hall. You do not know me, I said.
No, he said.
I do not. Then why? Because you are hurt, and because whatever is outside that door can wait until morning, he said. That is sufficient reason for tonight. I went to the room. I did not sleep immediately. I lay in the clean sheets and I looked at the ceiling, and I breathed carefully around the specific quality of relief that arrives after a long time under threat and that your body does not know how to receive without first treating it as another kind of danger. In the morning, I woke to the sound of the city below. I went to the window. On my way back to bed, I saw his jacket on the chair. The inside pocket, visible where the jacket had folded, showed the edge of a ring. I picked up the jacket carefully. I looked at the ring. The Gambino crest. I had seen that crest twice before. On the cufflinks Leo wore to formal dinners. On the ring Leo wore on his right hand, when he wanted the people in a room to understand who he was connected to. I had not known the name of the man the crest belonged to. I knew it now. I put the jacket down. I sat on the edge of the bed. I thought about the car and the rain and the split lip and the 4 years and the specific architecture of how I had gotten from being a 22-year-old woman who had fallen in love with someone who seemed like the safest option available to being a 26-year-old woman sitting in the bedroom of a mafia boss in a 22-floor penthouse with a bruised face and no shoes. I thought about what it meant that the man I had kissed to escape Leo was the man Leo never mentioned, without a specific quality of careful deference in his voice. I did not know yet what I was going to do with this information. I knew it was information I was going to use. I had been in the penthouse for 6 days when he told me about the dinner. Not a request. Albert did not request things. He stated what was happening and provided the information necessary to navigate it. Business dinner tonight, he said over breakfast. You will stay in the study. The door will be locked from the outside for your protection. You are not going to tell me who is coming, I said. He looked at me. You will hear it regardless, he said. The study shares a wall with the dining room. I understood this to be deliberate. He was giving me information without giving it to me directly, which I was beginning to understand was how he operated. He communicated in layers, and the people he trusted were the ones who could read all of them. I sat in the study with the wall between me and the dining room, and I listened. The voices arrived one by one as the evening progressed. Business conversation. The specific language of people discussing operations in the vocabulary they used when they thought the room was controlled. Then Leo's voice. I had not heard it in 6 days, and my body responded to it before my mind had finished processing the sound. The specific physical contraction. The automatic assessment of distance and exits. I pressed my hand flat against the wall, and I breathed. She's gone, Leo was saying. Completely disappeared. I have people looking. Your people, another voice said. She was mine, Leo said. For years. She just... What happened? Albert's voice. Flat. Even. Carrying nothing visible. Leo's answer came with a specific arrangement of words that people use when they are describing something they did and want the listener to receive as something that happened to them. The passive construction of someone who has never been required to describe their own actions in the first person. Albert said nothing for a long time after Leo finished. Find something else to occupy you, Albert said finally. This conversation is finished. Leo said something I did not catch. I said finished, Albert said. There was a quality in those 2 words that I had not heard directed at Leo in the 6 days I had been here. A specific temperature. Not cold exactly. Below cold. I sat in the study with my hand on the wall, and I understood for the first time with complete clarity something that rearranged everything I had been thinking about my situation. Albert Gambino was not someone who found Leo's behavior acceptable. He was someone who was connected to Leo by blood, and who could not simply remove that connection but who found it, specifically and visibly, repugnant. I was not simply hiding from Leo in this penthouse. I was hiding in the house of the only man Leo was afraid of. I sat with this for a long time after the guests left, and the house went quiet. Then I went to find Albert. I found him in the study. He was at the desk with a document open and a glass of something dark at his elbow, and he was working with the focused patience of someone for whom late hours were simply hours. He looked up when I came in. I sat in the chair across from his desk. He waited. The man you were talking about at dinner, I said. The girl who disappeared. He looked at me. I am her, I said. The room was very quiet. He sat back in his chair. He looked at me with those dark eyes, doing the thing they did, the rapid systematic processing, the gathering of information before a response. I waited for him to ask me to leave. He was quiet for a long time. How long? He said. For years, I said. And the kiss in the car, he said, was genuine fear, I said. He was behind me. I needed to disappear, and you were there. I paused. I did not know who you were. But you know now, he said. Yes, I said. He looked at the document on his desk. Then back at me. Leo is my sister's son, he said. I cannot remove him from the family. Blood is not a contract you can exit. He paused. But blood does not require approval. I looked at him. What he did to you, he said, is a stain on this name. He does it because the name protects him. Because people in this city understand that touching him has consequences. He stopped. He relies on the protection of something he has not earned and does not deserve. I waited. I cannot destroy my own blood, he said. But you're not blood. He looked at me steadily. You have every reason to want him finished. And I have resources you do not. He paused. I am asking if you want to use them. I looked at him. What does that mean? I said. It means, he said, that I am offering to teach you everything I know. How this world operates. How power moves. How to build something that cannot be taken from you. He paused. In exchange, you become my shadow director. You handle certain operations from behind the name. In 12 months, if you have done what I believe you can do, Leo will have nothing left that matters to him. I sat with this. And if I say no? I said. You leave in the morning with enough resources to start somewhere else, and Leo never finds you, he said. That is the alternative. I looked at my hands. I thought about 4 years. About the first time and the specific language he had used afterward, and the way I had believed it and then believed it less, and then stopped believing it and stayed anyway because leaving had felt like admitting that I had been wrong about everything, and I had not been ready to be that honest with myself. I looked at Albert Gambino. Teach me, I said. He was not a gentle teacher. Not cruel. Simply precise in the way of someone who understood that imprecision in his world costs lives and who therefore did not offer imprecision even in low-stakes situations as practice for the high-stakes ones. Look at me when you speak, he said on the second day of what I had started thinking of as the education. I was looking at a point slightly to the left of his face, which I had been doing my entire adult life with men who held power over me, because direct eye contact with those men had reliably preceded escalation. I know, I said. Give me a moment. I looked at him directly. He looked back. Good, he said. Not warmly. With the specific acknowledgement of a man noting progress. He taught me to read a financial document for the things it did not say. He taught me to walk into a room and assess it in the first 4 seconds. He taught me to fire a weapon with the specific calm of someone for whom the weapon was a tool rather than an object of fear. In the 3rd week, I broke. Not dramatically. In the middle of a training session where he had been asking me to repeat a specific negotiation tactic for the 4th time, and I had been executing it correctly on the 3rd repetition and incorrectly on the 4th, and I could feel the frustration building in him though he did not show it, and the specific body memory of what came after a man's frustration built activated in me before I could manage it. I sat down on the floor. I pressed my hands over my face. He did not come to me. He sat in the chair across the room, and he waited. After a while, he said, "Pain is a tool. It sharpens things that comfort blunts. Use it, or it will use you." I looked at him from the floor. "That is not comfort," I said. "No," he said. "It is not." He looked at me steadily. "You are on the floor because 4 years of someone using your fear against you has made your body treat all frustration as a prelude to violence. That is his work, not yours. You are not responsible for the repair, but you are responsible for the decision to repair." He paused. "Get up when you are ready. We will begin again." I got up. We began again. I thought about that conversation many times in the months that followed, about the specific distinction he had made. His work, not mine. Not a comfort exactly, but a reorientation. A correction of the accounting I had been doing wrong for years. Leo's first club closed on a Friday. I was sitting at Albert's desk when the call came in. Albert was on the far side of the room reading, which was his evening habit, and his phone was on the desk in front of me because I had been using it to cross-reference the financial records I had spent 6 weeks dismantling through the specific sequence of moves Albert had outlined and I had refined. The voice on the phone was one of Leo's managers. The liquor license had been revoked. The fire inspection had produced 17 violations. The landlord had exercised the break clause in the commercial lease that had been inserted into the original contract through a third-party legal maneuver I had arranged 2 months before through a firm that operated at significant remove from anything connected to either of our names. Albert looked up from his book. He looked at me. I looked at him. Your nephew, I said, is going to call you in approximately 20 minutes. He set down the book. He sat in the chair across from the desk. The call came in 18 minutes. Albert answered it on speaker, without moving his eyes from me. Leo's voice filled the room with the specific quality it had when things were not going his way, tighter than usual, the controls slightly off, the careful arrangement of a man who manages his presentation slipping at the edges. Uncle, I need your help. Someone is moving against my operations. The club. Which club? Albert said. The one on Meridian. The license and the inspection, it is coordinated. Someone with resources. You have made enemies, Albert said. That is the consequence of how you operate. A pause. You could find out who. I have my own business to manage, Albert said. Handle yours. He ended the call. He looked at me. I looked at him.
2 down, I said.
For remaining. Something moved in his expression. Not warmth exactly. The specific acknowledgement he gave to things done correctly, the brief recognition of someone who has assessed work and found it adequate to the standard he required.
2 down, he said.
He took me to the opera on a Saturday in the 5th month. Not as teacher and student. Not as an employer and shadow director. He told me the evening before, and he said, "Wear the gray dress. We are going as what we appear to be." I understood what he meant. A man and a woman at the opera. Nothing more complex than that. A single evening in which the world we had been operating in was set aside for the world that existed alongside it. I wore the gray dress. He wore a dark suit, and he met me at the door, and he looked at me for a moment with the expression I had been cataloging since the beginning, the one that was always brief and always replaced quickly with the controlled professional face, the expression of a man who is registering something he is not prepared for. We sat in the box above the main floor. The performance was long, and the music was the kind that reaches something in you without asking permission. I sat beside him, and I listened, and somewhere in the third act, I understood that I had not thought about Leo once since we arrived. I had not thought about the apartment or the rain or the split lip or the 4 years. I had been simply present. Here, in this seat, with this music, beside this man. I looked at Albert. He was watching the stage with the focused attention he brought to everything. His profile was the profile of a man who was entirely himself in this moment, not performing calmly, not managing a room, simply present. I thought, I am in a great deal of trouble, not because of the organization or the operations or the 12 months we had been building toward, because somewhere between the instructions and the corrections and the late nights at the desk and the 18-minute phone call, I had stopped using Albert Gambino as a weapon and had started looking at him as a person. And that was the specific thing I had promised myself I would not do. Because the last person I had looked at that way had cost me 4 years and a split lip, and the version of myself that had not yet learned to run. I looked back at the stage. I did not say anything, but I sat slightly closer than I had been sitting before. He did not move away. He broke into the study on a Tuesday evening while we were out. I found out from Aldrich, Albert's head of security, a man of 50 with the specifically quiet competence of someone who had been doing this work for a very long time and had developed strong professional opinions about people who violated secured spaces. The study, Aldrich said. He was in it for approximately 40 minutes. Albert was at his desk when Aldrich told him.
He did not look at me.
What did he find? Albert said. The journals on the lower shelf, Aldrich said. And the financial records from the Meridian operation. I sat in the chair. The journals were mine. I had been writing since I arrived here, not from habit but from the specific need of someone who had been told her version of events was inaccurate for 4 years and who needed to write down what had actually happened as a form of anchoring to the truth. I had written about Leo, about what he had done and when, and the specific language he had used to manage my understanding of my own experience. I had also written about the operations, about the clubs and the licenses and the legal maneuvers. Not from carelessness. I had written them in the way I process things analytically with the timeline and the strategy laid out, so I could see it clearly. If Leo had read those journals, he had 2 things. Everything Albert did not yet know about what I had been doing and why. And confirmation of what I had been using his uncle's resources for. Albert was quiet after Aldrich left. The specific quality of his silence was different from his usual silence. I sat with it. I was going to tell you, I said. I wanted to finish it first. He looked at me. You used my operation, he said. My contacts. My infrastructure. He paused. For a personal vendetta against my blood. Yes, I said. You could have told me at the beginning, he said. Would you have helped me if I had? I said. He was quiet. I do not know, he said. Which was the most honest answer he could have given, and both of us understood this. I did not know either, I said. So I built toward it carefully. I made myself useful. I made myself necessary. I looked at him directly. I am not sorry for what I did to Leo. I am sorry for what I did to you.
He looked at me for a long time.
Leo will come with the journals, he said. He will come here with the evidence, and he will expect me to choose. I know, I said. What do you want me to do?
He said.
I looked at him. This was the question I had not expected. I had expected the calculation, the operational response, the specific cold efficiency of a man weighing variables. Not, what do you want? I want you to do what is right, I said. Not what is family. What is right? Leo arrived the next evening. He came with the journals and the records and the specific energy of a man who believes he is about to win something. I was in the study when he arrived. Albert had told me to stay in the study, and I had decided that this was one instruction I was not going to follow because I was finished being in rooms while the decisions about my life were made in adjacent ones. I came out when I heard Leo's voice in the main corridor.
He saw me.
The quality of his expression in that moment contained several years of information compressed into a fraction of a second. The disbelief, the recalibration, the specific fury of a man who has been outsmarted by someone he spent 4 years convincing herself was beneath thinking. There she is, he said. Albert stood between us. Not physically. Positionally. The specific placement of a large man who has decided where he is going to stand and whose standing there communicates everything about what he will and will not permit. Leo placed the journals on the table. She used you, he said. Everything she did to my operations came from your desk. Your contacts. Your name. He looked at Albert. She is a spy. She came here deliberately. Albert looked at the journals. He looked at me. He looked at Leo. She ran from you, Albert said. Into my car. In the rain. With a split lip. His voice carried the below-cold quality I had heard once before through a wall. And you want me to be angry at her? Leo blinked. She used what was available to her to protect herself from what you did, Albert said. And she built something from it. He paused. Which is more than you have done with everything you were given. She is not family, Leo said. No, Albert said. She is not. He looked at his nephew with the expression of a man who has been carrying something for a long time and has decided tonight is the last night he carries it. You are. And you are a stain on this name. You have been a stain on this name for years, and I have accommodated it because blood has obligations that go beyond approval. He paused. Those obligations have limits. Leo looked at him. You are finished here, Albert said. Not dead. I will not do that to my sister. But finished. The accounts you access through the family name are closed. The operations you run under the Gambino protection are revoked. You leave the city, and you do not come back. For her, Leo said. For the name, Albert said. She is simply the reason it finally happened. Leo looked at me. I looked at him. I did not say anything. I did not need to. He left. Albert and I stood in the room after the door closed. I am sorry, I said. For using you without telling you the full truth. I knew more than you thought I did, he said. I am not as easy to use as you believed. I looked at him. You knew, I said. I suspected from the second week, he said. And I chose to let it proceed, because what you were building was accurate. Leo is exactly what you said he is. And the way you were dismantling him was more precise than anything I would have done with the same anger. I looked at him for a long time. You let me think I was being clever, I said. You were clever, he said. And you were angry. Both of those things were useful. He paused. And I wanted to see what you would become when someone gave you the space to become it. I sat down. What happens now? I said. He was quiet for a moment. Now, he said, I tell you that I am finished pretending that what has been building between us since the opera is something I have not noticed. I looked at him. I told myself I would not, I said.
I know, he said.
I told myself the same thing. I am afraid, I said. The most honest sentence I had spoken since the car. That I will become something I was again. That loving someone will make me something that can be owned.
I know, he said.
I am afraid of what it means to want to protect something. He looked at me with the dark eyes that had not been completely honest with me, even when they were withholding information. In my world, everything I value becomes a target. Then we are both afraid, I said. Yes, he said.
We sat with this.
I do not want to waste the time, he said finally, that comes after the fear. I looked at him. I thought about a rainy street and a black sedan and a kiss that was supposed to be a shield and had turned into something neither of us had anticipated. Neither do I said. 1 year later. The office on the 31st floor of the Gambino Logistics building had glass walls and a view of the city that communicated, without requiring words, exactly what level of the organization structure the person inside had occupied. I had chosen the desk myself. Not the largest. The one position so that the door was always visible and the window was always accessible. The specific positioning of someone who had learned that knowing your exits was not paranoia, but information. Aldrich appeared at the door. He is here, Aldrich said.
Send him in, I said.
I turned the chair to face the window. I heard the door. The footsteps. The specific quality of a man who still walked with the swagger of someone who expected rooms to arrange themselves around him. I heard him stop. Someone said the regional director wanted to see me, Leo said. I thought there must be a mistake. I turned the chair. He looked at me. I looked at him. He was thinner than he had been. The year, without the Gambino name protecting him, had produced the specific kind of thinning that comes from having to actually manage your own consequences. He was dressed adequately, not expensively. The specific presentation of someone who no longer has access to the resources that previously communicated his status. He looked at the ring on my right hand, the Gambino crest. He started. Sit down, Leo, I said. He sat. Not because he wanted to. Because the specific quality of my voice in that moment carried something that his nervous system recognized from a different direction than he was accustomed to receiving it. I looked at him. I thought about the night in the rain, the split lip, the 4 years I had spent making myself smaller and more useful and more apologetic and more invisible in response to the escalating demands of someone who experienced my presence as a thing to be managed rather than a person to be known. I thought about the study floor and the negotiation tactics and the opera and the 18-minute phone call and 1 year of building something in the space that had been cleared when I finally understood that I was allowed to take up the space I occupied. I did not feel triumph. I felt the specific settled quality of someone who has arrived at the thing they were building toward and found that the building was the point rather than the arriving. The position you applied for, I said, has been filled.
He looked at me. I wanted you to know that, I said.
Specifically from me. I heard the door behind him. Leo turned. Albert came in. He walked to the desk, and he stood behind my chair, and he placed his hand on my shoulder with the specific deliberate intention of a man communicating something to a room. Leo looked at his uncle.
He looked at me.
He stood. He walked out. Albert looked at the door he had left through.
Done? He said.
Done, I said. He moved the chair beside the desk, and he sat. He looked at the city through the glass wall. How does it feel?
He said.
I thought about this carefully. Quieter than I expected, I said. Not empty. Just quiet. He nodded. The quiet is what comes after, he said. Most people do not get to experience it. I looked at the city. I thought about the girl who had run in the rain without shoes and made a decision out of desperation that had turned out to be the most important decision she had ever made. I thought about what she had not known in that moment. That the car she was climbing into belonged to the most powerful man in the city. That the man she was running from was connected to him. That the fear that drove her through the rain would become the fuel for something she had not been capable of imagining from the pavement of that street. I thought about the woman sitting in this chair now, who had been built in that year. Not by Albert's resources or Albert's training, though both of those things had been necessary, but by the specific daily decision, repeated across 12 months, to take the next step, to get up from the floor, to look directly, to use the pain as a tool rather than let it use her. I did not enter your car to be saved, I said. Albert looked at me. I entered it to find a bigger monster than the one behind me, I said. That is what I told myself.
And now? He said.
I looked at him, at the man who had held my jaw in the rain and called the doctor and sat in the chair while I learned to look directly and never once made me feel like the thing I was learning to stop feeling like. Now, I said, I think I entered it because the universe understood something I did not yet understand about what I was capable of becoming and decided to put me somewhere that could hold it. He looked at me for a moment. That is a generous interpretation of chance, he said. I am a generous person, I said. He almost smiled. The city spread below us, indifferent and enormous and full of people living their ordinary lives in the specific way that ordinary lives proceed, forward, one day at a time, without knowing what the days are building toward. I looked at it. I thought, I am not afraid of the quiet. I built this quiet, and I intend to live inside it. To every person who stayed too long, because leaving felt like admitting failure. To every person who ran without shoes because the alternative was worse than the rain. And to everyone who discovered, in the most unlikely place, that they were capable of something the person who hurt them could never have imagined. You were never broken. You were in the wrong environment. There is a difference. If this story reached you, please like, share, and leave a comment below. Tell us which moment stayed with you longest.
Take care of yourselves.
We will see you in the next story.